All right, let's talk about removing distracting items. So in this image, in my studio, I have these vents in the ground that drive me crazy, and I have to take them out a lot. So I've got that there. I've got this here, and he also has this watch on. So all three of those things need to go. So there's a couple different ways that you can take things out, and I use a variety of them depending on what's going on. And sometimes it's a matter of trying something and seeing what result you get, and then undoing it. So I have not done this in advance, so we're just gonna do it together for the first time. So with something like this, I would start with my remove tool and see what it gives me. So I'm on this remove tool over here, this little band-aid with the stars, and I'm just gonna paint over her diaper. Now, as you can see, I've already copied my background, so I'm working on a new layer. So I still have my original background down there, but I'm working on a duplicate. So I'm just gonna go like that, paint it out, and see what it gives me. Now, it kind of gummed up her leg. It's not ideal, right? You could certainly go in and like use your clone brush and kind of fix that up a little bit, but let's try another tactic. Let's try circling it and using this, generative fill here. And I'm not going to put in what I want because I just want it to fill with the textures and things that are similar to what's already there. So I'm just going to click generate without putting anything into that box. And there we go. That is much better than the first one that was really like gummy gross. So if you go up here to your properties and you drop this down, they give you three different variations. So here's number one, there's two, and there's three, and I don't know what that weird black thing is. So I think one is the best. Let's zoom out so you can see it from afar. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Like, it actually makes like it look like her leg is bent, and she's got some definition there, much better than the first one. So what I'm gonna do so that I can play with it a little bit is I'm gonna take this generative fill layer and I'm gonna merge it with the background copy, and I'm gonna do that by holding Shift, clicking on both of them, and then now that they're both selected, I'm gonna hit Command E, and they're gonna merge them together. Again, that's Command E as an elephant. Okay, so not too bad. There's a weird little part right there. I'm just gonna use my clone stamp. So over here, I'm on my stamp. I hit S to go to it with the keyboard shortcut, and I'm just gonna get rid of this little guy here. All right, there we go. That's better. Okay, now she has no distracting diaper there. Okay, let's move on to the next. Let's take out this watch. All right, with the watch, it's a little tricky because of the way his wrist is bending. I don't think the remove tool is going to do a very good job, but again, let's just try it and see what it gives us for the sake of seeing all these different examples. Not great. We can always try to do it again now that it's out the first time. Not great. Okay, let's go back and let's try generative fill again and see what it gives us from here. The generative fill always makes me laugh because it does stuff like this. Like, okay, I gave him like a rave bracelet instead of his watch, and it did it every time. Okay, so that's clearly not what we want. A great example of what happens sometimes when you use generative fill. So you could hit generate again and it would come up with three new ones. Let's just do that just to see what it comes up with. I have a feeling it's going to probably give you more options very similar to this, where it's replacing it with a different type of bracelet. And that clearly is not what we want. So we might need to go back to that remove tool and use a combination of the remove tool and yeah, see, it gave us an orange bracelet, a maroon bracelet, and a red bracelet, none of which was what we want. So we're going to go ahead and just delete out that layer because that is not what we want. Okay, so you could just use your stamp tool and get it all out that way, which might be the fastest, or you can also use a combination. So when you're using your stamp tool, you can hold Option and click on an area that you want to source. And then if you hold Shift and Option, can you see how like I'm moving that part around? Now I can see where it's going. So it's kind of nice because you can just like paint it in that way. So like if I lined that up, I could do that. And then I can just paint out what I want and get rid of it that way. But the other thing that you can do, I'm just kind of showing you different ways that you can explore removing this. The other thing that you can do is use masks. So I'm just going to take a chunk of his arm here, and I'm going to, I just use my lasso tool to select that. I'm going to hit Command J, and I'm going to jump that to a new layer. So now if you just look at that layer, that's all I've got on there. And I'm going to just move it over on top, and then I'm going to transform it, Command T to transform. And I'm just going to bring it down until it's about the right shape and size for this patch that I want to cover. So something like that, obviously, like it's not blending in very well yet. I'm going to hit Command and click on my layer to highlight it again. Then I'm going to hit this mask button. And then I'm going to blur the heck out of the mask so that those edges are nice and soft. Not that soft, that's too much. Maybe 30. Okay. Now, when I move it over, I can kind of start to hide that watch band. Obviously, I'm not hiding the whole thing yet. Oops. And then you can paint with black and white to work on getting those lines a little bit closer and better. And then you can still come in and do your stamp tool, right? There's so many different ways. So I'm just kind of showing you the ways that you can go about getting there. I think that this is going to be too time consuming. So I'm not going to do it this way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a combination of things to get rid of this. So first, I'm going to use my remove tool down here to just get rid of this band that's coming down onto his jeans. All right, there we go. That works nicely, right? Now I'm going to come up and do the same thing for this part that is kind of overlapping onto his shirt and get that line of his arm, right? There we go. That's better. I'm going to do one more right there. Okay. Now I'm going to just do the band on his wrist. Okay, it didn't do a perfect job, but it's just as close as that other piece was. So, all right, I'm going to kind of leave that there. All right, obviously I don't want it just like this, but I am now going to switch to my stamp tool and finish it from here because I got the colors and the textures and everything on this side pretty darn good with that remove tool. And now I just need to fix this weird part over here. So I'm going to source from down here in that good skin, and then I'm going to move it up here. And again, I'm just holding Shift and Option so that I can see that preview of where it's going. And then I'm going to just paint that part out. And then I'm going to shift back to my remove tool. And then actually I'm going to switch to my patch tool for this final little piece. And I'm going to take that piece and just move it down here and try and get some little bit better texture in there. Oops. So this is kind of like playing with a bunch of different tools to try and get the right blend. I always like to zoom out and see like how is it looking. And I think what the problem is here is that his watch was kind of blocking the way that his wrist would naturally go. So it's a little bit fat right there. So what I'm going to do now is just go into liquefy and just thin it down right here so that it doesn't look quite so bulky. And I'm on this warp tool, forward warp tool. And I'm just going to kind of push it in just a little bit right there by his wrist. Very gently. There we go. Much better. Okay, so now there's before, there's after. We've taken out that watch and the diaper. And obviously that took a little bit longer because I was kind of showing you the different ways that you can get there. But if I was doing it quickly, I would have gone with the remove tool right away and then just moved in with my stamp tool and my patch tool to clean them all up. And then on this guy here, again, you can use a combo of things, but I find that usually the generative fill works pretty good on my floors. It's whenever you're taking out like a watch or something like that, that it thinks you want something else there rather than just filling in the details. And so the AI gets a little confused on what it is that you want. But see that it did a really good job of just taking that out on the floor without me needing to do anything else. So I'm just going to go ahead and merge that together. So there's your before, there's your after, taking those like big distracting elements out. And then you can go in and do your usual retouching.